sunny Spain. Right, on this episode of Life in Spain Unfiltered, I'm going to talk about what's going on in the news in regards to this tourist protests. I'm always surprised when I pick up a newspaper or click on a website that this gets so much coverage. Of course, it is news and it is an important subject to debate. But before we get into how tourism is affecting the locals at the moment, especially at this present time, I'll give you a little bit of background. Well, over the last couple of years, as people are aware, in lots of parts of Europe, prices have been increasing, and it has been getting more and more difficult for people, local people in tourist areas, to find themselves places to live, and it's getting increasingly expensive to live in these areas. Just from my experiences here on the Costa del Sol, over the last month or so, I have noticed a big increase in tourism, as we tend to get this time of year, as the summer season starts to kick in. But what I have also noticed is how much things have gone up in cost. Now, where I live here, we're very lucky. We have a very good local supermarket where they stock a range of foreign products and local products. But even that, I would say, has gone up 25-30% in price. Now, I don't know if that's a case of the owner suddenly thinking, yeah, maybe I should cash in on all these tourists, but because there does seem to be an influx of Northern Europeans. Of course, on the Costa del Sol, you always get an influx of Northern Europeans, especially Brits. But at the moment, it seems to be kind of back down to the levels of 2002, where they seem to be taking over. I said in the previous video, feel a bit sorry for the locals here, because if you do walk along the seafront, or you go out like I did last night, predominantly the restaurants are full of foreigners. Now, of course, this is very good for the local economy and people survive off this, and people get jobs through this tourism. But a lot of the time, it does seem foreign businesses for foreign tourists. Now, for example, I was in a restaurant last night with two friends, and there must have been 80 to 100 people in that restaurant. It was an Indian restaurant we went out to. And maybe Indian food isn't popular with the locals, but we did go out reasonably late, and we ate around about 9:30. But usually, or what used to happen was, certain restaurants would get a double wave of trade. So you get the tourist trade early, because the Northern European tends to eat early, and then after that you'd get an influx of locals, as they tend to eat here from 9:30 to 10:30. But last night, when we sat in that restaurant at 10:30, it was empty. The only two tables came in were late stragglers who'd had a few drinks. Now, all over the news at the moment, it's, again, international news, is these tourist protests. They've always been around over the last couple of years, but they do seem to be intensifying somewhat, from the water pistols being fired at tourists in Barcelona to the mass protests in the Canary Islands. But they are everywhere at the moment. Now, I can understand that. To give you a little bit of perspective, I was with a friend yesterday who's a British guy, and he's going to go back to the UK. Now, he's what you classify as your classic expat here. He's legally employs himself. He's self-employed, but he's now going back to the UK because he was saying he's finding it very, very difficult to live here. Now, obviously, he's not a local; he's an expat local, but he was struggling. He's saying with the price he has to pay for his stamp, or his autonomo as it's called here, plus the cost of living for a one-bedroom flat, and he was living inland, and he was paying way over €1,000. And he's made the choice now that he can't afford to live here anymore. He's better off going back home, which kind of surprised me, because a couple of years ago I thought this guy would be here forever. But he's completely turned his way of thinking around, and already has got a job which will probably pay him more within a week than he would earn here in a month. So for him, it was a no-brainer. Now, the average wage here on the Costa del Sol, legal wage I should say, because there's still a large black economy, is probably between 1,300 and 1,400 euros a month. Now, when rents are going up way over 1,000, the local people here cannot survive on that type of wage. When you go to the supermarket now, I just bought 2 bags of shopping yesterday, and it cost me way over €50. People are starting to struggle. So these protests do seem justified, but where do we go? We need some sort of balance between the tourism and the locals, because mass tourism, although it has changed here on the Costa del Sol, is still a problem, be it from the Airbnbs, taking away from accommodation for local people, to to the fact that people can't afford to go out and drink and eat like they used to back in the day. I worry here now for the Spanish who come in July and August, because usually in July and August here on the Costa del Sol we get influx from both the Cordova and Sevilla areas, mainly the small towns and villages around those cities and in those provinces. They come down here to escape the brutal heat in the inland. Now, in the past they would rent apartments, they would share apartments, but I can't imagine the pain they must be going through at the moment, because things are so expensive. Even the beach bars, which I previously said have now probably turned from beach bars, chiringuitos, into pretty full-on restaurants, and they're nice and they're outpricing these quite normal working class people who can't afford to come here. Where they're going now is probably another matter. Maybe they're going further up the coast, maybe they're going to the north of Spain, because the north of Spain once again has an increase in tourism. Galicia especially, which probably has temperatures probably 10 or 15 degrees lower than here and a cooler night, and also a very beautiful coastline. But even there, people are starting to get fed up with the tourists. Once again, accommodation is limited, and people can't find places to live. Now, what surprised me when flicking through the local and international press was the perception of some of these protests around the world. And I did notice that it's not just Spain now. So both Italy and Portugal are going through the same thing. Not to the extent of here, but locals are starting to protest against mass tourism. I did also notice, quite surprisingly, in the US, that they've gone up to a level 2 travel warning. So, I mean, that's not too seriously, but it warns about unrest. It gives basic guidelines to when to visit those countries. Be a bit more wary. Stay away from large groups. All these things don't help when it comes to the Spanish model of tourism, and it gives it a negative image. Now, you put on top of that what's happened recently with these shootings and various crime stories which have gone around the world. It's a worrying time here for the image of Spain, and unfortunately, when something happens, even down on the Costa del Sol, the whole of the country gets kind of painted with the same image. Now, people will be aware of the shootings here, what happened in my own town, and I did a video about that recently. But that spread internationally, and so many people contacted me to say, what's going on where you are? Is it safe to travel there? Of course it's safe to travel here. In general, this is a beautiful resort, a beautiful, great place for a family, and if you can afford it, there's some lovely hotels and lovely places to stay here. What's also happening here is, which isn't making international news, which is a shame, is the police are coming down on this organised crime. In various news about various police operations where they're attacking, especially the organised crime on the Costa del Sol. Now, only, I think it was yesterday, I read a news story about they arrested several people again in organised mafias, organised crime. They've managed to get hold of various weapons and all sorts of things, which is once again good news. Well, I wish that was making international news, because it does show that the police here are doing something about it. But they are up against it, because it is a little bit out of control from that, but has been since the 80s. There's always been that dark undercurrent here, but it hasn't really seeped into local everyday life until now, which once again is probably more to do with the media world we live in, and a story like that going viral. Right, that's all I want to say today, and please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. I bid you farewell. Have a good one.